If you're looking for a city for the setting of your video game, then how about London? It's a city with 2,000 years of history, has some of Europe's most instantly recognisable landmarks, and is home to a diverse culture and iconic designs. And many game developers agree with me, as if you're playing a game that's set in England, then there's about a 75% chance that it's set in the nation's capital. But with so many virtual Londons, which video game London is the most London? To find out, I created a bucket list that combines famous landmarks and gameplay to decide which one is the best. I've already made episodes based in LA, New York and San Francisco, but just in case you're new here, on our first trip outside the USA, here are the rules. If you can do the thing in the game will win a point. If you can't do the thing in the game won't win a point. I'll also be awarding gold stars for whichever game I decide does that thing the best. These won't be worth any extra points, but will help decide any tiebreakers. Right, let's meet the contestants. Assassin's Creed Syndicate, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Grand Theft Auto London 1969, Destroy Humans 2, Reprobed, Zombie, Watch Dogs Legion, Midtown Madness 2, Midnight Club Street Racing, The Italian Job, and The Getaway. There are other games out there set in London, so if you've missed out your favourite, please leave a comment below. Maybe one day I'll do a part 2. The most notable absentee is Fallout London. I wasn't sure whether to include this or not, as it's a mod made by fans and not a fully developed game, but I'll let you decide if it should be included in a future episode. And if it is, I might need your help, seeing how I'm a console player and can't actually play it. In case you hadn't noticed, I live in England. Look, I'll prove it. Tuesday, innit bruv? And so for the first time in this series, I was able to travel down to London after writing my to-do list. So I was able to take notes and get a first-hand account of everything I needed. I can't promise I'll be able to do this for more videos in the future, but if anyone wants to buy me a ticket to Tokyo or Miami, the thanks button is right there. Right, bring on the first challenge. Reach the top of Big Ben. I, like every true Englishman knows, that Big Ben is actually the name of the bell inside the tower. And the tower itself is really called the Elizabeth Tower. But I mean, come on, it's Big Ben. The whole world calls it Big Ben. To complete this task, I need to get above the clock face. Any method is allowed. The only two games on a list that are missing London's most famous landmark are Zombie and Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Obviously this game is because it's not been built yet. I tried to keep historical accuracy in mind when making this video, but there really is only so far I can go. Unfortunately, both these games fail. You can find a version of it in the Italian Job, but it's very short. It's there in Midtown Madness, complete with an animated clock face, but it's very blurry. And we can also find a very decent model of it in Midnight Club. We're seeing how in these three games we can't get out of the car, and the cars can't fly, we have no way to reach the top of Big Ben. London geezer Mark Hammond can get out of his car in the Getaway, but unfortunately the lack of traversal in this game makes it impossible to get up this very badly rendered Double B in this game. With GTA London's top-down perspective, we have no way to reach the top, especially because aircraft won't be available until GTA Vice City. We can find a highly detailed version of the tower in Watch Dogs Legion. It's by far the best looking one on the list so far. But can we reach the top? There's no climbing in this game, but there are plenty of drones we can hack, including a large one for construction, which we're able to ride around on in a method I call green goblining. But unfortunately the drone can't reach high enough, so this didn't work. In one of the game's missions you get to control a spider bot and crawl around the insides of the actual clock tower, which is very fun as you negotiate all the cogs and pendulums, but unfortunately you never go above it, so that's a fail. What about Assassin's Creed Syndicate? Just like every Assassin's Creed game, there's plenty of climbing and traversal, and the introduction of a grapple hook makes climbing the clock tower a piece of cake in this game. We even get to meet Big Benjamin himself. The Houses of Parliament look especially beautiful. As this game was set in 1868, Big Ben is only 9 years old, so he's still new and shiny. It looks absolutely gorgeous. So that just leaves us with Destroy Humans 2. In this game, alien anti-hero Crypto has a little jetpack, so surely this is going to be an easy pass. Go on, you can do it, buddy. Oh, I guess not. Well, time for plan B. After succeeding where Guy Fawkes failed, reaching above the clock face was now easy peasy. That's a very unconventional pass, but a pass nonetheless. But obviously, Syndicate's going to get the gold star for this one, due to the high level of detail, and it's the only game that lets us reach the top without completely destroying the place. Take a boat trip down the Thames. This famous river sits in the heart of London, and historically was used for getting goods in and out of the city. And today you can still take a ferry, or a pleasure cruise along the river. To pass this one, you can be the pilot, or the passenger, but the boat has to be animated. To get the gold star, you'll need to pass under Tower Bridge, as they'll also be analysing that in this round. The Italian Job is the only game on this list where you can't find Tower Bridge, or even the Thames. It's completely absent. We can find a very nice version of the bridge in Zombie with an Eye. but due to the whole, apocalypse thing, there isn't a boat in sight. The river is also completely empty in the Getaway, and much like the game's version of Big Ben, the bad rendering of the bridge means it lacks any proper detail. If you try and look underneath, it's also very thin. Clearly you're just supposed to drive over this thing at high speed and not stop for a proper look. You won't find any boats in Midnight Club, but Tower Bridge is here at least. GTA London also lacks boats, and driving over a Tower Bridge is a nightmare, as with the top-down perspective, those overhead walkways block most of your view. The river is also empty to Destroy All Humans 2, but we can find a very nice, but slightly cartoony version of the bridge. It also blows up pretty good as well. Midtown Madness 2 is the only game on this list that bothered to animate the bridge opening and closing, which is a really cool detail that makes for some fun jumps. There are a couple more bridges on the map that open and close like this, but this is completely inaccurate, as Tower Bridge is the only bridge in London that can do this, so once a tall ship has passed through, that's as far as it can get. Despite the inaccuracy of these other drawbridges, they're going to play an important part to help me complete this challenge. There are a few animated boats making their way up and down the river. First I tried to use the drawbridge to try and jump onto a ferry, but this didn't really work. Then I noticed a very slow moving tugboat pushing a barge, so I used the drawbridge like a ramp yet again. And boom, nailed it. There we go, our first pass. I may be moving very slowly, but I'm definitely sailing down the Thames. In Valhalla, obviously we play a Vikinger. And what is a Vikinger without their longboat? Obviously there's no tower bridge, but instead we see this large stone Roman bridge. But this is actually incorrect, as the Roman bridge built here was actually a pontoon bridge made out of wood. A proper stone bridge wouldn't be built until a couple of decades after this game was set. But still, we're sailing about the River Thames, so that's a pass. I also absolutely love the detail of them bringing down the mast. The boat can fit under the bridge. Don't know why, it's just so satisfying. The Thames in Assassin's Creed Syndicate is absolutely rammed with boats. It's very cool. Now, it was said in this time period you could cross the Thames without touching the water because of the sheer number of boats. But we can do that in the game. But I'm pretty sure someone was being a bit of a drama queen and over-exaggerating when they said this. Looking at paintings, drawings, and even early photographs of this time period, I mean yes, it is busy, but it's nowhere near as busy as we see in the game. Obviously, this has been done for gameplay purposes, but it really does make the river feel alive. The river's not just been used for freight, there are also passenger ferries as well, which are fully operational. But where's Tower Bridge? Surely this game was set too far in the past. Well, if you head to the eastern side of the Thames, where Tower Bridge should be, you can see a wormhole, and you can jump through this to enter London in the First World War era, complete with a built Tower Bridge. Looks absolutely amazing and highly detailed, and of course we can pass a boat underneath it. So, anyone else? Well, here comes Watch Dogs Legion. The level of boat traffic is a bit more believable in this game. You'll find speedboats, yachts, barges, and even the occasional passenger ferry, which is exactly what I saw in real life on my trip down to London. And also we can pilot boats ourselves, passing under all the famous bridges, including London Tower Bridge, which just like Syndicate is a very detailed and extremely well modelled bridge. We can even take a boat down the London canals if we really want to. As this is the only game on our list that lets you pilot a boat under Tower Bridge, it gets its first gold star. Take a swim in a London park. London has many parks and green spaces to get away from the hustle and bustle of city life, and no park is complete without a large body of water. So let's take a dip, in a vehicle or on foot. Don't try this at home unless you really like the taste of duck poo. There are a couple of green spaces of water in Valhalla, but we really can't call these parks. It's just where nature started to reclaim some of the buildings. No city council is managing this. The only park I can find in ZombiU is this really small depressing one, with no duck pond, so no swimming. In the Getaway we can find St James's Park, which is just outside of Buckingham Palace, complete with bridge and fountain. We can also visit Hyde Park, one of London's largest parks, and the Getaway is the only game on this list that gets the scale right. It feels absolutely huge, so much so that Mark Hammond started to get tired, and had to drive around the rest of the way. It does have to be said that there are way too many trees though. There are a lot more open spaces in these parks, and it's not a jungle like we see here in the game. Right, so let's go for a dip. Okay, let's not go for a dip. No matter how hard I tried, there was no way of getting through the seemingly indestructible low chain fence. I couldn't find a way into the pond in St James's Park either, so that's a fail. We can find a teeny tiny park in the Italian job, complete with a play area for the kids and the world's smallest duck pond, and we can drive straight in for our first pass. Midnight Club includes the most parks. We can find St James's, Hyde Park, and also Regent's Park, which includes some really nice details, with various gardens and monuments, and ponds, so we can take our cars for a late night dip. It's a similar story in Midtown Madness 2, but this time in the day. We can find some very inviting looking ponds, and this is the only game on our list that bothered to include waterfowl. But both these games had the opposite problem of the Getaway. It's way too open and there aren't nearly enough trees. We can visit Hyde Park in Grand Theft Auto, It's not very detailed, but still cool that it's here. And look, a nice big pond. Let's take a dip. Oh, we drowned. That does still count as a pass though. I did technically go swimming, even if it was just for a tiny bit. This is also what happens in Destroy Humans 2. As Crypto can't swim, firstly his force field stops him from entering the water, but eventually he gives up, and there we go, another watery grave pass. For this, I did a spot of body snatching to have a good old look around the park, and it's really nicely detailed. There's full of NPCs just having a nice stroll. Some of them are painting, and there are also a couple of market stalls. It's a nice detail. We can also find many NPCs enjoying the park in Watch Dogs Legion. You'll find loads of them just strolling through the place. There are tourists taking photos, others taking part in yoga classes and keeping fit, and these guys playing dominoes. We can find Hyde Park, and a very nice version of St James's Park. The fully swimmable duck pond. But in my opinion, the best game for parks has to be Assassin's Creed Syndicate. Yes, we get a nice pass by swimming in the pond in St James's Park, complete with this fountain and bridge, but it's all the Victorian NPCs that really bring these places to life. There are so many of them here just going for a nice stroll. There are kids playing football, blokes in top hats playing cricket, ice cream vendors, there's couples stopping to have a photo taken, and just so many details. They make the parks feel like proper lived environments, and for that the game wins the gold star. Play Knock and Run at 10 Downing Street. Downing Street is the official home of the UK Prime Minister, so it's kind of like our version of the White House. A slightly crappy mid-terrace version of the White House. But how many games out there actually include Downing Street? And let us walk right up to number 10 for a game of Knock and Run. Downing Street is out of bounds in the Italian job, and GTA London's map is far too small to include it. We won't find it in Zombie, Destroy Humans 2, or Midnight Club. There are a few alleyways around the correct area in Midtown Madness 2, but we don't see any buildings that look like Downing Street, so I can't allow a pass for that. Robert Walpole was the first UK Prime Minister in 1721, so sorry Eivor, you're about 800 years too early. The Getaway finally allows us to visit Downing Street. Well, the gate's outside of it anyway. Surprisingly, Downing Street was actually open to the public until 1974, when the police finally restricted access due to security reasons. Security was further improved in 1989, the construction of these metal gates you see in the game. I couldn't possibly think why on earth they needed to improve security at this time. Unfortunately, the lack of reversal yet again lets this game down, as there's no way to get over the gates, or get round them, believe me, I checked. Assassin's Creed Syndicate lets us walk right up to number 10 Downing Street. As I just mentioned, it was open to the public at this time, but it feels strange walking right up to it with absolutely no security. Well, I knocked, I ran, nothing happened. We actually get to hang around with the Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli in some of the story missions, which is pretty cool.
Jacob Fry.
I wasn't informed of any new bodyguard.
In Watch Dogs Legion, yes, I'm in my pants, don't worry about it, you can visit 10 Downing Street. But this being said, in the near future, security is very tight. There are armed guards and security drones, laser fences and cameras. You might just sneak in there, knock on the front door, but then was instantly gunned down. I then tried again with another character who happens to be a secret agent, who is way better prepared than some random woman in her underwear. So I was able to make it all the way to the front door to knock, run, and survive. So only those two games get a pass. I'm going to give the gold star to Watch Dogs Legion on this one, because it was just way more fun of a challenge. But I felt like I was doing something proper naughty and that I was up to no good. Let's quickly check the scoreboard. Assassin's Creed Syndicate is currently on top, passing every single round so far, with 2 gold stars. Watch Dogs Legion is just behind with 3 points and 2 gold stars. Hey you two, share some gold stars with the rest of them, okay? Midtown Madness 2 and Destroy Humans 2 are both joint third. Zombie, and very surprisingly the Getaway, hasn't scored a single point yet. But don't worry, there's still a long way to go. I'm sure it'll bounce back. Take the tube. London is the one place I refuse to drive. But thanks to the vast network of the London Underground, you don't need to. So how many of our games include this iconic public transport system? It would have been nice to have walked into a station, then got on an animated train to go for a ride, but apparently this is too much to ask. So all they need to do to pass this one is enter a tube station. What is this tube that you speak of? I'm just a dumb Viking. Brrr. Surely Assassin's Creed Syndicate is also too early to feature the tube. Well, apparently not. The tube opened in 1863, with a line heading out of Paddington Station. Paddington Station is in the game, but there's no sign of the tube. There are plenty of above ground trains, but these don't count. I found a large open pit of construction that I thought was going to be them building the tube, but it's just a sewer down here, there's no sign of any railway tracks. You can see signs of the London Underground in GTA, but that's it, no stations or tunnels. So no passes for this one. In the Italian job we can find this rather large tube entrance, but unfortunately you can't actually get down there, it's blocked by a gate. I think at some point during the game's development you could drive into the tube, seeing how our main plot point in the movie is all about cars driving where they shouldn't. so it makes sense they'd carry this on into the game, but for whatever reason it was left out. In the Getaway there are tube entrances all over the place, but you can't actually get down there, as yet again we're thwarted by impassable gates. In Midnight Club we find this tunnel, which has the London Underground logo, but when you drive through it it's just a generic boring tunnel. There's no tracks here, there's no trains. This isn't the London Underground, that sign is a lie. In Destroy Humans 2 it looked like we're going to be foiled yet again, with tube entrances that were sealed off by gates. But there's a large area of construction, and if you head down you can find an entrance into the tunnels. If we head deep enough, we find ourselves at the abandoned St. Gallbladder's station, which obviously doesn't exist. I think it's a pun on St. Pancras, which sounds a bit like pancreas. There isn't enough body organ related humour in our games, but it's surprisingly detailed, and also gives us our first pass. There's also an abandoned tube station in Watch Dogs Legion, which serves as our safe house. It's full of graffiti and even has an old train. There are also less abandoned tube stations all over the map, and they use the game's fast travel system, which is a nice touch, and definitely counts as taking the tube. It's just a shame we don't have any animated trains down here, and the stations could be bigger, and lack quite a bit of detail. I mean, what even is this tube map? This is completely wrong. Zombie definitely doesn't have this problem, as we can see a proper tube map, just like you'll find in real life. The game starts off inside a tube station, and it's used as your main safe house. The station is huge and contains shops, and even a smashed up derailed train. It's full of lots of little accurate detailing, like the dreaded service information whiteboards of doom, which are feared by frequent travellers on the tube. Well done Zombie, that's your very first pass. But the best tube system has to go to Midtown Madness 2. Under the map there's a whole network of tunnels and stations. I mean sure, they're way too big, there's no way you could drive a car down there in real life. But that doesn't matter, this is a heap of fun. And there's even animated trains at last. Yes, look at them go. It really does feel like a proper large network of tunnels, and it's a real fun way to get around the city. So well done Midtown Madness 2, you get your first gold star. Drive a black cab and red double-decker bus. Let's carry on the theme of public transport, and take a look at these two icons that you'll see roaming the streets of London. Any age, shape or design will do. Where and when the world's first bus route took place is a surprisingly contested subject. Either way, AC Valhalla is set 1,000 years too early. What about AC Syndicate? Surely this is going to fail as well. Well, I never said anything about the bus or taxi having to be motorised. The very first London buses were actually horse-drawn carriages, often pulled by 2 or 4 horses. Back in this time they were known as omnibuses, and were built by companies such as Adams & Co. And yes, they are double-decker, as you can tell by the terrified NPC clinging on for dear life on the top deck. And the carriage is red, so that's a pass on the buses. Bye everyone, I'm sure they'll be fine. But what about taxis? Well, London taxis also go by the name of hackney carriages, and the original hackney carriages are these 2-wheeled buggies, often pulled by a single horse, and much like the omnibus they can be driven. That's a very historically accurate pass for Assassin's Creed Syndicate. When driving around the Italian job we can see many classic AEC Route Master red buses driving around, and many classic LTI FX4, which are probably the best known of all the black taxi cabs. But unfortunately we don't get to drive them. We do get to drive this bus from the movie. And this car belongs to the Pakistani, but I can't do a good Michael Caine impression, I'm sorry. Either way, those aren't good enough to pass. We can also find black cabs and red buses like these, driving around the map in Destroy Humans 2. But yeah, Crypto can't drive these unfortunately. But they blow up pretty good. There isn't any driving in Zombie, but you can find a very patriotic looking taxi, based on the LTI TX2, and one of the more modern looking double-decker buses. Grand Theft Auto is of course about thefting autos, in a very grand way. So of course you can steal a black cab, and a red double-decker bus. Well, at least I think it's double-decker. It's hard to tell from this top-down perspective. Midnight Club has a bunch of bonus vehicles you can unlock, 2 of which happen to be a black taxi cab, and a double-decker bus. They're both not licensed designs, probably for copyright reasons, but appear to be based on more modern vehicle designs. Midtown Madness 2 also has these 2 vehicles as bonus vehicles, so once again you can drive around and have fun in these trademark and copyright safe versions of public transport vehicles. Driving the bus at high speeds however can turn sideways very quickly, literally. There are also loads of black cabs and red buses driving around the streets of London in the Getaway. This game has fully licensed vehicles, and they're very decent models, of the London Taxi International FX4s and the classic AEC Route Master red buses. The taxis feel appropriately sluggish, with their big diesel engines. When driving the double-decker buses, the camera does something very weird, and joins you inside the bus, rather than hovering just above it. I'm assuming this is so you can see where you're going. Also, maybe placing the camera this high would have meant you'd be able to see over small buildings, and see part of the map that wasn't built, or lacked texture. In the near future of Watch Dogs Legion, we can find these strange pod-like, self-driving taxis all over London. And there's also a version which are clearly based on the latest models of taxis. These are the electric LEVC TXs, which is now the most common type of a black cab you'll see driving around the streets of real-life London. The buses we find in this game are also based on the brand new Routemaster buses. I know not everyone likes these new buses, but I think they're really cool, and you can see a lot of nods and references to the classic design. So that's a futuristic pass. But I'm going to give the gold star to the Getaway on this one. It's the only game where you can drive fully licensed versions of real-life taxis and buses. Hang out with royalty. Love them or hate them, England has been ruled by monarchs basically forever. Apart from those 11 years just after the Civil War we don't like to talk about. That's the English Civil War, by the way, America. We had one too. So yeah, let's go find some royals. They can be real or fictional. Ha ha, very funny Getaway. That one's obviously not going to pass. If we head to Buckingham Palace, much like real life, you won't get very close to it, as it's surrounded by a tall impassable fence. So we won't be able to go and chill out with Elizabeth II this time. You can drive up to old Liz's front door in Midnight Club, but she's not there to greet us. If you can find the right spot at Midtown Madness 2, you can smash through a gate and drive around Buckingham Palace. But again, the Queen is nowhere to be seen. We also don't get to meet the royal family in Watch Dogs Legion, but something has always puzzled me about this game. If you go to Buckingham Palace, there's all these signs outside saying, "Where's the Queen?" Oh, Lizzie would have been well over 100 at this point. And it's surprising to think that the devs saw that she'd lived this long. I mean, it's possible, but it leaves so many questions. I mean, maybe they're talking about Camilla, maybe she's done a runner from old Charles. Or possibly it's the worst possible timeline. And with the current line of royal succession, old Charlie, Wills and George have all snuffed it, leaving Charlotte in charge, and now she's disappeared. So many questions. Either way, if you try and find out, the royal guard will ask you politely to leave, and then not so politely. One of the main locations in Zombie is Buckingham Palace, and you can fully explore all around the interior. I was fully expecting to bump into zombified Queen Lizzie, but apparently the devs had more taste than that. In Destroy Humans 2 we get to hang on with Natalia. She may be my queen, but unfortunately she's not the queen, so that's a fail. In a mission in GTA London, we kidnap someone known only as Royal Posh Guy. Now, they're in a royal limo and heading to Buckingham Palace, so I thought maybe they could be one of the lesser royals. But later on in the same mission you find out they're heading to the palace to receive an OBE, which is a prestigious royal award, a little bit like a knighthood. So this means they can't be a member of the royal family, as this is the one piece of nepotism they won't get behind. It's more likely to be a politician or something like that. In Assassin's Creed Syndicate, finally we get a legitimate monarch, in the form of Queen Victoria. And old Vicky is a right laugh to hang around with. We meet her at a royal party and basically save her life. She then knights us, and later she gives us side missions, because of course she does. It's an Ubisoft game. They love side missions. In Valhalla, you're literally tripping over kings. There's so many of them. It's been a while since I played through this game. I didn't want to spend hours and hours and hours, literally this game is so bloody long, capturing footage of all of them. So here's some footage of King Alfred the Great. But we also get to meet King Haldaf Ragnarsson, Viking King Harold, King Burgred of Mercia, King Rhodey, Ceolwulf II of Mercia, Raisig of Northumbria, and Charles the Fat. There are probably others in there, I'm just skimming through Wikipedia at this point. Seeing how Valhalla has more kings than a deck of cards, it wins the gold star. Go from Buckingham Palace to Westminster Abbey. This is the round where I check to see how accurate these games' maps are compared to the real layout of London streets. This is the route we'll be taking on a real map of London. From Buckingham Palace we need to head down a large avenue called the Mall, which is almost a kilometre long. This will take us to Admiralty Arch, which we'll pass underneath. On the other side we should be at the south end of Trafalgar Square. We head all the way around a complicated roundabout, almost turning back on ourselves to head down Whitehall. We should then follow this road, past the Cenotaph, which is a war memorial in the middle of the road, then finally ending up at Westminster Abbey. Let's see how accurate they are. As I mentioned before, Buckingham Palace is in Zombie, but the lack of a open world map means we can't go to Westminster Abbey. Valhalla is missing both these landmarks, obviously, and so is Reprobed. We can find Trafalgar Square, where Nelson's column blows up pretty well. We can find a very blocky Westminster Abbey in the Italian job, but no Buckingham Palace. So fails for those four. Right, let's attempt this in GTA London, as all the appropriate landmarks are here. And we're done. What, already? Better do a slow motion replay for that one. Buckingham Palace, Trafalgar Square, and Westminster Abbey all right next to each other on the map. Which is completely wrong, but it's still worthy of a pass. Just not a very good one. The Buckingham Palace you'll see in Syndicate is a bit different to the one you see in modern day. This is the building's original facade, which has changed when it got a bit grimy and was falling apart. We then head down a very nice and wide open avenue with lots of trees. When we reach the far end we can see the Admiralty building, but not Admiralty Arch. That's because it's not actually been built yet, because it was built to commemorate the death of Queen Victoria. And as we saw in the previous round, is very much still with us. We then pass a very beautiful and highly detailed version of Trafalgar Square. which looks particularly gorgeous in this game. We then head down Whitehall, but there's no cenotaph, obviously because the World Wars haven't happened yet. Then we find ourselves at a highly detailed version of Westminster Abbey. That was a very historically accurate pass. In Midtown Madness 2 we can see a very blocky but instantly recognisable version of Buckingham Palace. The Mall is nice and wide, and even got the slightly reddish colour of the road correct. We head through a basic version of Admiralty Arch, and see a simple Trafalgar Square that's in its correct place. But the complicated roundabout is missing. So is the cenotaph and a few of the buildings down Whitehall. Then we find ourselves at a very blocky Westminster Abbey. That was a decent attempt, well done. The Mall Midnight Club is way too short, but Admiralty Arch and Trafalgar Square are both there in the right place. The roundabout is missing and so is the cenotaph. And there's Westminster Abbey. Buckingham Palace and the monument at the front are absolutely perfect in Legion, right down to the road layout. And the Mall is a very decent length. One random detail I've seen most of these games get wrong is that we can see double-decker buses driving here, where in real life they are banned from this section of the Mall for security reasons. Or something. We then pass through a highly detailed Admiralty Arch, and a very good looking Trafalgar Square, which in this game is full of protesters. This is the first game to include the complicated roundabout, with a statue of King Charles I on horseback in the middle. We also finally see the cenotaph as well as many of the buildings we see down Whitehall. Then we find a great recreation of Westminster Abbey. This is definitely the best one so far, but it's not quite as good as the Getaway's version. There's Buckingham Palace, complete with the pedestrian zone outside the front. When they head down a very gorgeous looking version of the Mall, complete with reddish tone on the road, with tall trees on the edge, almost creating a tunnel. The scale is perfect, it takes a decent while to drive down the Mall. There's Admiralty Arch again and Trafalgar Square, when even the statue of King Charles I, in the middle of the complicated roundabout. Heading down Whitehall we see all the buildings in their correct places, and the cenotaph. And again it takes a while to drive down there. And there we are at last, Westminster Abbey. When the level designers built the map for the Getaway, they referenced real maps, and it has by far the most realistic layout out of all the games on the list. The scale and distance between places is very accurate. That's another gold star for the Getaway. We're over halfway through, let's check the scoreboard. Assassin's Creed Syndicate is still on top, with 7 points. Legion is just behind with 6. Midtown Madness is third with 5. Zombie and the Italian Job are dead last, but at least they both have a point each. Valhalla has 2, and so does the Getaway. Interestingly, both its points are gold stars, which is a strange one. Anyway, let's carry on. Go to the pub. Whey! Do I need to explain this one? London 1969, the Italian Job, Midtown Madness 2, and Midnight Club won't let us go to the pub. Boo! I drove around all these games but couldn't find any. But Midnight Club at least included some fish and chips, so that's something. In Zombie we can find a pub called the Queen's Crown. First of all, that's a terrible pub name. And second of all, we can't go in. So Zombie misses out on an easy pass. Assassin's Creed Valhalla allows you to down beers. Hey! Lads! But this is in a villa rather than a pub, so basically we're just having drinks around at a mate's house. Although this awful carpet wouldn't look out of place at your local Wetherspoons. We head out into the London streets. There are drunk people all over the place. It's nice to see that our ancestors were doing the exact same thing over 1,000 years ago. When you look around you can find various taverns, with people enjoying a nice pint of mead or something. So Valhalla gets a boozy pass. The Shore Humans 2 contains many very British looking shops and businesses, some with particularly funny names. We can also find a very detailed pub called the Stout Man. You can't go inside but you can wander around its beer garden. Well, it's more like a terrace on the street, but it's highly detailed and I think worthy of a pass. In the Getaway, an early story mission we can go to shoot up a very fancy bar, but it's not very pubby. We can find plenty of pubs dotted all over the map which we can't actually go into. But in a cutscene we get to go to the Spotted Dog, a particularly dark and dingy and very rough looking pub. Taking all these into account, I think the Getaway does enough to pass this one. We can find pubs all over the place, in AC Syndicate, and out of all the games they probably have the best atmosphere. Inside you can find rich and poor people just having a good time, downing pints with their buddies, and some of them even have piano players, which is accurate. I was in a pub recently and there was a dude on the piano doing a medley of TV theme tunes. Good times. Although the pubs appear slightly different on the outside, with different names and slightly different facades, inside it's just the same building, but with the furniture moved around slightly. Some are shiny, some are dingy, but it is a little bit disappointing, as overall they lack variety. Gold star in this round goes to Watch Dogs Legion. There aren't quite as many pubs when compared to Syndicate, and the atmosphere isn't quite the same, but they are very detailed and feel incredibly authentic, with all the wooden panelling, old paintings on the wall, and roaring fireplaces. You can even play darts. And take part in some minesweeping while you down other people's pints. Don't try this at home. Well, I don't think that's hers, I didn't see her pay for it. There are a few pubs dotted around the map. Some of them repeat themselves, but I found about 4 different ones with very detailed interiors. And so that's a pass. Ride the London Eye. I've tried to avoid some of the more modern landmarks of London because it wouldn't be fair in the games with historic settings. So I've deliberately excluded things like the Shard, the Millennium Dome, and the Gherkin. But to find the best version of London, we need to include at least one of them. So any games out there, let us ride the giant Ferris wheel known as the London Eye. Straight away we can roll out Italian Job, Valhalla, Syndicate, GTA, and Destroy Humans, as all games were set before 2000, when the Eye was built. Despite coming out in September 2000, there's no sign of the Eye in Midtown Madness 2, which is very odd, especially because it's in Midnight Club, which was released in the same year. But unfortunately it's not animated, and we can't ride it. We can find a very nice looking model of it in the Getaway. It looks appropriately massive, but we can't actually go up to the base of it, which is disappointing, so no rides for the hamster. It's nowhere to be seen in Zombie, that just leaves Watch Dogs Legion. Well, there's the Eye, and yet again, rather disappointingly, it's not animated. But if we go up to it, we'll find one of the pods at the bottom is open, and if you go inside, hey, we're moving! This is really cool, and you get an absolutely amazing view of London up here. It takes about 5 minutes to go all the way around, which is 25 minutes shorter than the real thing. But to be fair, if you stuck on here for half an hour in the game, you'd probably get bored. Seeing as it's the only game that gets a pass, it gets the gold star by default. Explore a Museum. London is home to some of the country's best museums, including the National Gallery, home to many famous artworks, the Natural History Museum, where you'll find many impressive dinosaur fossils, and the British Museum, where you find all the cool stuff we stole, many ancient artifacts that we're taking very good care of on behalf of other countries, temporarily. Yeah, I think I got away with that one. To pass this one, we need to be able to go inside the museum, and I'm excluding the Tower of London. It's definitely a museum, but I'm including it in a later challenge. Surprisingly, Assassin's Creed Valhalla does include a museum. Well, kind of. At home, in the village of Ravensthorpe, a bloke who's absolutely obsessed with the Romans can set up shop, and he displays many Roman artifacts. But because in the game, the museum sits in Ravensthorpe and not London, I'm going to have to disqualify it. We're looking for the best London here, not the best Ravensthorpe. We can't find any museums in the Italian Job or Zombie, which is a real shame. It would have made a very cool place to run around smashing zombies' heads in. In Destroy Humans 2, it is technically possible to end up inside the Natural History Museum, because if you get killed, your corpse gets put on display there. But as it's just a random pop-up and we don't actually get to explore the interior, that doesn't count. The museum that features the most in all these games is the National Gallery, as it sits on the northern side of Trafalgar Square. There's a version of it in Grand Theft. You find a very beautiful version of it in Syndicate, but you can't go inside. It's also the same story in Watch Dogs Legion, and you can also find the British Museum, but again you can't go inside. Both of these museums also appear in Midtown Madness 2, but again, no interior. The National Gallery is also in Midnight Club, and oh! You can actually go inside it. Well, that's crazy. You may not be able to see the works of Turner or Constable, but still, that's a pass. Just about. In the Getaway, we get to visit the Reptilian Gallery, but with such a stupid name, surely it's made up. Well, yes, but actually no, as it's based on the equally stupidly named Serpentine Gallery. Just like in real life, you'll find many works of modern art, with a highly detailed and fully explorable interior. Also, the National Gallery and British Museum are here, but you can't go inside. As the Getaway is the only game that put any effort into the interior's museum, it wins the gold star very easily. Destroy a red telephone box. A true British icon, these telephone booths have been on the British streets since the 1920s, although it's very unlikely you'll be making a telephone call from them in the modern day, as they're now used for a number of alternative uses, including ATMs, storing defibrillators, village bookstores, and whatever the hell this is. So let's go destroy a bunch of them, by any means necessary. As I mentioned, they were introduced in the 1920s, so you certainly won't find any in Valhalla, and even the World War I section of Syndicate is a decade too early. Although interestingly, in the Victorian era, we get to hang around with Scotsman Alexander Graham Bell, who is credited with the invention of the telephone. And apparently Evie Fry came up with a name for it.
Phonetic telegraph? Sounds a bit of a mouthful. You could just call it a telephone.
There are plenty of red boxes all over the map in the Italian Job, so let's give them a smash. Oh, well, in this game they're indestructible. They're also indestructible in the Getaway. In real life they are made of cast iron, with wooden panelling. They're certainly tough, but not indestructible. In this game you can also find the glass box phone booths from the 1980s, which are now an endangered species on the streets of Britain, because they were all vandalised. You also don't get to wreck them in GTA London, but this for gameplay reasons, as this is how you receive most of your missions. So it'd be no good failing a mission before you even have a chance to start it. We can find a red phone booth in Zombie. We may not have a car to smash into it, but one thing we do have is frag grenades. But unfortunately, yet again, these phone booths are absolutely indestructible. Right, Destroy Humans 2. Game all about blowing stuff up. Surely this is going to be an easy pass. Okay. How about an ion detonator? What? Okay, how about a meteor strike? Oh, come on. Even with the Sorcerer's Laser and Quantum Deconstructor that obliterates absolutely everything, the phone booths are once again indestructible. This is for gameplay reasons, as phone booths are used by NPCs to call the police, and if you find the right disguise, you can use them to lower your wanted level. So they kind of had to be indestructible for this reason, which is a bit disappointing. Okay, Midnight Club 2, back to ramming into them with a car. Yes, finally! I mean, technically they're still in one piece, but that's good enough for a pass. I also like the little bell noise they make when you hit them, very satisfying. The exact same thing happens in Midtown Madness 2, so that's our second pass. Seeing how Watch Dogs Legion came out 2 console generations later, the phone booth is finally smashed into lots of pieces, in a much more realistic way. Also in the game, they use the public Wi-Fi hub, which is a very cool in-game reason to happen there. So Legion picks up yet another gold star. With 3 times to go, let's check the scoreboard once again. Well, would you look at that? Watch Dogs Legion has hopped above Assassin's Creed Syndicate to take the top spot, with 9 points and 5 gold stars, beating Syndicate with its 8 points and 2 gold stars. Midtown Madness 2 is still consistently sat in 3rd place, but is only a point ahead of Midnight Club. Zombie and the Italian Job are still both dead last, with 1 point each. Syndicate still has a chance to win with 3 rounds to go. Get beaten by a Bobby. My American viewers may want to sit down for this one, but our police officers don't carry firearms. Shocking, I know. We do have specially trained armed police, but your normal Bobby patrolling the streets is going to be armed with batons, pepper spray, and maybe a taser. So let's see how the police in these video games react. If they pull out a pistol and start shooting straight away, that's going to be a fail. For a gold star, I'm looking for a stereotypical police officer dressed in blue, trying to hit you with a truncheon, saying, "Oi, oi, oi, what's all this then?" and blowing a whistle. You can find a few police officers in Zombie. I have a friend who works with the police up in Scotland, and those bloodshot eyes, and the way they stagger around, sure remind me of him when he's had a few. But seeing how all the police in this game are zombified, I can't allow a pass. In Valhalla, I got up to some cheeky Viking mischief. And no policeman came to intervene, probably because London's Metropolitan Police weren't founded until 1828. In this time period, the peacekeeping would be done by soldiers, commanded by the various kings I mentioned before. They don't really care that much if you start harming citizens, but enter one of their bases and you're in a whole lot of trouble. We can hardly call this a police force, so I'm going to have to give Valhalla a fail. In Destroy Humans, running around as an alien probably would provoke a lot of gunshots, so I used Body Snatch once again to put on a disguise. I found some Bobbies to go and annoy. Bumping into them didn't seem to do much.
What were you trying to start something?
And then I tried jaywalking. This did end up provoking the police, who instantly opened fire, so that's definitely a fail. They didn't even try to arrest me, or attempt any other kind of non-lethal solution. I caused some minor offences on the streets of GTA. This being a Grand Theft Auto game, of course the police are going to show up and instantly start opening fire, right? Well, surprisingly no. Cops in this game show a surprising amount of restraint. And instead of gunning you down, they'll chase after you and arrest you. So do they show the same level of restraint when they get behind a wheel? No. It's full-on kamikaze mode with these coppers. I do have to mention that they open fire on you if you start committing more serious offences. This is actually kind of accurate, as cops in the 60s were allowed to carry handguns, due to high levels of violent crime in this time period. So GTA does just about enough to pass. For games where you can't leave the car, such as the Italian Job, we're looking for realistic pursuit tactics. The cops should be trying to box us in or get in front of us, rather than completely ram us off the road, or cause us to have a violent wreck. Go the speed limit and they'll leave you alone. But if you go just 1 mile an hour over, it's bumper cars time, as they'll keep on ramming into you, while simultaneously reading out your number plate. If they drive down the whole thing, you're nicked. But at least they're driving around in era-accurate Ford Anglias. The same can't be said for the cops in Midtown Madness 2, who are patrolling the streets in muscle cars. Yeah, we don't do that here. The main tactics of the cops in this game is to pull alongside you, and then ram you onto the pavement. And I don't think you're going to find this in any police training manuals. It sounds very dangerous to the public and pedestrians. The police in Midnight Club do a far better job. First of all, the police cars look a lot more appropriate. They are sedans, showing the correct police livery of the time. They'll sit just behind you, waiting for the right moment to strike. Then pull around ahead of you, try and block your path to box you in. Occasionally they will ram you, but I think that's because the cops' AI isn't particularly great. Their main protocol seems to be to surround you, rather than ram you off the road. So that's a pass. In Watch Dogs Legion, the main force you'll come across is Albion. This is a private company and their officers are armed to the teeth, so I won't be confronting them. You can find normal police officers just wandering the streets, like here outside Old Scotland Yard. I kept my weapons hidden and insulted a police officer. She then proceeded to get out her baton and start hitting me. Good, she didn't just pull out a gun and start shooting. I then decided to try and escalate the matter, and draw my weapon, and she immediately runs off. Considering there was no backup around, this is a very believable and sensible reaction. The armed Albion forces then arrived to take me out. I'd say all in all, yeah, this is quite realistic. So that's another pass. If you start causing trouble in the streets in the Getaway, There are many Bobbies out there, armed with truncheons to come and whack you over the head, and then arrest you. So again, play realistic. Policemen on the streets don't carry guns. The ones driving police cars do for some reason. But rather interestingly, if you don't shoot them, they'll just kind of point their guns at you to try and arrest you. And they will actually shoot you until you pull out a gun and start shooting them. They will just try and pistol whip you. If you get into a car, they will open fire, but they seem to be aiming at the tyres. In the middle of an urban environment, I seriously doubt they'd do this. There'd be far too much paperwork involved. But hey, at least they're not trying to shoot me in the head. But as we say, their driving is a bit aggressive. Bit of a mixed bag with this one, but I think that's worthy of a pass, as the police do try and bring you in alive, rather than kill you. There are police all over the place in Syndicate, dressed in bright blue, with their iconic domed helmet. Start causing trouble and they'll come after you, truncheons in hand to give you a right good wallop, and they are very effective with them. Some of them will also blow whistles to alert other officers in the area to come and join in the pursuit. Most of them carry truncheons, but you will find the occasional one packing a revolver, who will try and shoot you. This is actually accurate to the era, as a small number of the police on the streets were armed with revolvers during this time period. Though it's historically accurate, as the Bobbies and Syndicate are the most stereotypical, I'm going to give them the gold star. Visit the English countryside. It kind of annoys me that so many games set in England just go straight to London, rather than explore our beautiful English countryside. Not you, Forza Horizon 4, and Atomfall, you guys are great. So, do any of our London-based games also let us visit the countryside? The Getaway, GTA, Watch Dogs Legion, Zombie with an Eye, Midnight Club, and Midtown Madness 2 all fail this one miserably, but you can't leave the urban environment. In Reprobed, London is tiny. Oh, actually it's called Albion, but that's fine. And we can see green rolling hills off in the distance. It is possible to reach the edge of the city, and just about leave the buildings behind. Look, see? Ahead of me there's nothing but trees. No fences. I think this just about counts as me visiting the countryside, but only just. The talent job has a few side activities. One of them takes place around a racetrack. Apart from buildings on one side, it's completely surrounded by trees. So it's safe to say that we're in the countryside. Assassin's Creed Syndicate is probably the only game in history to ever visit the town of Croydon, which isn't the countryside, but this section leads to a very exciting chase section on top of a train, which passes through the countryside. Look at those rolling green hills. Lovely. So that's a pass. But the king of the countryside has to go to Assassin's Creed Valhalla. This map takes place across a huge part of England, so we can visit the coastline in East Anglia, the snowy mountains of Northumbria, and the farmlands of Nottinghamshire. And they all look pretty spectacular. So well done Valhalla, that's your second gold star. Sightseeing Lightning Round. It's the final round, which means it's time once again to go sightseeing. Can we find these 5 iconic landmarks? The Tower of London, St Paul's Cathedral, Battersea Power Station, Covent Garden, and Piccadilly Circus. 4 out of 5 are needed for a pass. Surely Valhalla's going to fail this one, as none of these landmarks have been built yet. Well yes, it's going to fail, but surprisingly St Paul's Cathedral is here. Well, a very old version of it. Different versions of this church have been built in London for hundreds of years, but as it's sat in the middle of the Roman ruins, it is in completely the wrong place. I haven't mentioned it yet, but the London in this game is a complete lie. During the time period this game is set, Londinium, the Roman city, was still left abandoned, and the Anglo-Saxon tribes set up a new settlement called Ludenvik, which was to the west, outside of the Roman city walls. It wouldn't be until 886 when Alfred the Great, who we met before, reclaimed the city and moved it back into the Roman fortifications. So that's a good 10 years later than this game is set. That's definitely a fail. Rather disappointingly, you won't find any of these landmarks in Destroy All Humans 2. The only one you'll find in the Italian job is Piccadilly Circus. Now it's not a bad recreation. You can see the statue of Eros and all the colourful billboards. You'll find a mall that's a bit like Covent Garden, but it's definitely not Covent Garden. That's a fail. We can find a very detailed version of the Tower of London in Zombie, but this is the only one of the 5 you'll find, so that's also a fail. London 1969 does slightly better, and delivers us top-down versions of the Tower of London, Piccadilly Circus, and the Battersea Power Station. They actually had to blow up in one of the missions. That's 3 out of 5, not good enough for a pass unfortunately. The Battersea Power Station hasn't actually been built yet in Assassin's Creed Syndicate, and even if it was, we wouldn't be able to visit it, as it sits outside of the map boundary. The other 4 have been built though, so we need to find all 4 of them for this game to pass. We can find a very beautiful version of Covent Garden, which you can go inside, and it looks great, it's so detailed. And here's Piccadilly Circus, before the Eros statue was built, and obviously before all the massive LED signs were added. We can also find St Paul's Cathedral, looks absolutely amazing in this game, although probably slightly too clean for this time period. It should really be absolutely covered in soot and grime. And if we travel to the World War I area, we can find the Tower of London, which has been occupied by the British Army at this point. Again, it's highly detailed and looks amazing. That's our first pass. On the streets of Midtown Madness 2 we can find Battersea Power Station, St Paul's Cathedral, Covent Garden, and the Tower of London, which you can drive all the way through. The only one missing is Piccadilly Circus. There are plenty of junctions around that side of the map, but definitely no Piccadilly Circus. Still, that's a pass. In Midnight Club we can find the Tower of London, fully drive-throughable, if that's a word, Battersea Power Station, Piccadilly Circus, and a fully smashable Covent Garden. Surprisingly, St Paul's Cathedral is missing, which is absolutely crazy. I think they just ran out of room on the map for it. The Getaway gives us poorly rendered versions of the Tower of London, St Paul's Cathedral, Covent Garden, and Piccadilly Circus, all in their correct places. The only one missing is Battersea Power Station, as this map of London does include this area. So do any games out there include all 5 to get the gold star? Well, here comes Watch Dogs Legion, where we can find St Paul's, Covent Garden, although in the near future rather disappointingly it's been shut down and taken over by a gang of thugs. That's rubbish. A very futuristic and awesome looking version of Piccadilly Circus, complete with holograms, a fully explorable Tower of London, Battersea Power Station, that's been turned into a shopping mall, which looks very cool. They even still have the old generators in here. So there we have it, 5 out of 5. Gold star for Watch Dogs Legion. Right, all challenges complete. Let's find out who's won this thing. It dead last with only the 1 point is Zombie. Very disappointing, especially with this modern day setting. He really should have done so much better. Up next is the Talent Job with 2 points. Unsurprising for a game with such a small map. Then we have Grand Theft Auto London 1969. Honestly, I thought this game would do better. Surprisingly, then it's Assassin's Creed Valhalla. It also got 4 points, but those 2 gold stars for the 2 rounds that had the least to do with London means it only just beats GTA. Destroy Humans 2 Reprobed has 5 points, with its small but detailed version of London, and the Getaway has 6 points. Its placement here basically sums up my feelings about this game. It's a great map of London, perfect time capsule of the early 2000s, but it's let down massively by its poor on-foot gameplay. Just missing out in the top 3 is Midnight Club, with 7 points. Midtown Madness 2 also has 7 points, but the 1 gold star in the tube round means it takes the bronze medal. Those 2 games are very similar, and it literally could have gone either way. Just missing out the top spot is Assassin's Creed Syndicate, with 11 points and 3 gold stars. This was a gorgeous version of London, and definitely had the most atmosphere, which means taking the top spot is Watch Dogs Legion. It also had 11 points, which is the first time in the series we've had 2 games at the same amount of points in the top 2 spots. But with an amazing 6 gold stars, it's the worthy winner, and I think this is fair. A lot of the areas in between the landmarks and Syndicate just feel like filler, like there's nothing really there. Watch Dogs Legion packs so much London into its map. Every district feels different. I know I've mainly focused on the tourist spots, but it gets a lot of the everyday London correct. I have family that live down in Brixton, so I'm very familiar with the area, and it's interesting seeing all the little local landmarks of that area, and not just the world famous ones. It truly is a great map. So, there we have it. Where shall we go to next? I hope you've noticed an improvement in video quality, as this was the first video in this series I've made using my new laptop with more professional editing software, and better quality capture equipment, and I hope it shows. If you enjoyed this video, please show your appreciation of like, sharing, subscribing, you know all that good stuff. I'm Foolish Pedro, look after yourself out there, and I'll see you soon with a new episode.